Ano ai ke aloha ya kākou. Thank you for joining us. Today, Governor Green will talk about Act 90 and the transfer of agricultural lands from the Department of Land and Natural Resources to the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. Facilitated questions and answers will follow promptly after remarks conclude. Without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce Governor Josh Green.
Aloha, good to see everyone. Today we're going to spend some energy on agriculture and land use, and this is an update on what's referred to as Act 90. You can see here, Act 90 is a process by which we can have collaborative land transfers, and it's an important piece of legislation that was passed many years ago, actually in 2003, and I'm so pleased to have a lot of our ag leaders here today from the Ledge. Good to see you guys. I'm going to do something I don't always do, which is single out one, and that's Lorraine Inouye from Big Island, who wrote that bill back a few years ago. And honestly, we've tried to enhance our capacity to move land into the ag space so that we can enhance food security. It's important to us to steward our natural resources. That's what you're going to hear more detail about from our Dlnr chair and our ag director and other leaders in the field. So without farms, we just don't have food for our people, and that's what we're about. We're trying to really move that down the field. So let's go to the next slide, if you don't mind. So what we're doing is we're, like I said, enhancing our food security. We're going to be good stewards of our land, but in order to do that, it takes action. So we go to the next slide, and you can see what we're doing here. We're preserving ag lands, but we're working on the transfer of approximately, over time, up to 110,000 acres, which are eligible for transfer under the statute. And that is from the Act 90, 2003. Now, this act says a couple things. Number one, we've got to conserve and protect our ag lands. Two, we have to promote diversified agriculture, which I think you're going to hear a lot about from our champions today. And a lot of our lands are more than just important. They actually fulfill our mission to the state, which is to keep the land in its perpetuous state of righteousness. And that means growing and cultivating the land. So it's been a long time since we've seen big movement on this. The next slide will show you what I mean. A lot of people probably talk about this. We had 2 decades of limited progress, where from 2003 to 2022, we only moved 19,000 acres from Dlnr to DOA for this purpose. And that's just not adequate based on what the legislature wanted us to do. So what we did is we put this project on steroids. I sat down with our directors right off the bat last year and said, I'd like to see real progress at the behest of our legislative leaders, who said there is a lot of land that could be transferred. And so look what we've done since. Next slide. We sat down, like I said, and what we did is we isolated several parcels, 99 parcels, from the BOA to accept from the Dlnr, totaling up to 21,672 acres. Now, they've announced plans to finish a lot of these land transfers. We've made unprecedented progress. I shared earlier how many we did for 20 years, and now look at what we've been able to do since. Let's go to the next slides. So those are the parcels that were identified. You can see they're very heavily on Big Island, and that's why we have a lot of Big Island leadership, but also all of our neighbor island leaders are into this, right? And that's a pretty good map to demonstrate it. And we're welcoming our superstar, Senator Inouye, here right now, like I said, who wrote this bill sometime when Cedric Gates was being born. 2003, yes. So we got the bookends of leadership on this. But we see these parcels, and I really appreciate people actually bringing the specifics to me as Gov and saying, could we please get our directors to do this? I mean, it was really good collaboration. So you can see these parcels, and now let's flip one more slide or two. So we've already moved 5,000 acres just in 2003, after it took 20 years to do about 20,000 acres. And look what we're teeing up for the next 6 months, as many as 43,000 acres. So essentially, by the time we get through this year, we will have done twice as much in 1 year as happened in 20 years. And I'm just really grateful to have had the leadership from the legislative champions to push us to get this done. So that is the progress. Let's see, maybe one more slide. Oh, that's just the obligatory I'm married slide. Yeah. The truth is, we really are happy to see people making progress on so many issues, and ag is one. So I'm going to pause there, and we'll have an opportunity to hear from experts and thank them for their hard work. Thank you guys.
Mahalo, Governor. Next, welcome Hawaii Department of Agriculture Director Sharon Hurd.
Thank you, Makana. Good morning. Thank you, Governor, legislators, press. My name is Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture Chairperson, and I want to give my thanks to the administration. When we took office after the confirmation, Dlnr Chair Don and I, we were told that this administration supports agriculture and food production, and it was very exciting. Then the session started, and the two ranchers in the room, Senator DeCoit and Senator Tim Richards, they made no bones about it. Ranching food production are tied hand in hand. So I wanted to make the point that with this Act 90, the successes of the transfer of parcels, we have increased the amount of land that's coming over, but what we lack is production. We need to put the lands that we have into food production. We need to support that, provide the resources. One statistic I want to make is that more than 90% of the farms, of the 7,328 farms in the state, are small farms. More than 90% are small farms, less than 9 acres, right around 9 acres. This Act 90 success transfer puts parcels that are far bigger, larger than the 9 acres marks a small farm. We can put so much more food into production, and we need to support production, which is lacking. The one idea is, for instance, the lands that are out there, Mahipono on Maui, 40,000 plus acres. They want to go into food production. Let's help them. Let's support them. My message now is to the staff of both Dlnr and DOA, amazing job. Amazing job. Just think of what they did in such a short time. Got Linda, Brandy, Brian, Janelle's here too. Thank you. And my final message is, work's not done. We got lots more to do. Moving more and more land over to ag for food production is going to build food security for the state of Hawaii. So thank you.
Mahalo, Director Hurd. Next, please welcome Department of Land and Natural Resources Director Don Chang.
Aloha mai kako, Don Chang, and I am the chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources. It is a great honor to be here today to share with everybody who's been so instrumental in making sure that Act 90 is implemented. When we came on board, as Sharon Hurd said, the governor and his leadership really encouraged us to sit down and work together and implement Act 90. Act 90 was designed to look at, we have dual missions. We have the mission, as Chair Hurd said, to increase food production. We also have the mission to continue to preserve and protect very important watershed lands, forestry lands. But there's an opportunity to do both of that under Act 90. And with the urging, quite frankly, of the senators and of the community to go out and actually see these ranches. I had the opportunity to visit KK Ranch and Kapapala Ranch on Hawaii Island. Extremely impressed. They are good stewards of the land. They are taking care of the land. They can do both food production as well as managing our forest lands. So with that opportunity to witness for myself the good work that these ranchers are doing, I was very comfortable in working with Chair Hurd on transferring many more of those lands. So we are in the process of completing more of those transfers. We look forward to the ranchers working with us, with our forestry division. But I thank you again. I think the governor's leadership has created the opportunity for collaboration, not only amongst DOA and DLNR, but the community, the ranchers, as well as our legislators. So thank you again for this opportunity. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Director Chang. Now I'd like to introduce Hawaii Farm Bureau Executive Director Ikalamite Brian Miyamoto.
Aloha and good morning. I'm Brian Miyamoto. I'm here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. First and foremost, mahalo, Governor. Thank you for allowing me to be here and for the opportunity to say a few words from the ag sector about Act 90. You know, the agriculture community has been waiting 20 years for some real meaningful actions regarding Act 90. We now see that with your administration, Governor. Thank you. The intent of Act 90 was to ensure the long-term use of agricultural lands by transferring productive agricultural land from Dlnr to Hdoa because the Department of Agriculture is more equipped to manage agricultural lands. The success of ranchers and farmers is a key component to the state's agriculture goals, such as doubling food production, farm to school, and the many other goals that we want: food sustainability, food security. We need productive agricultural lands. Farmers and ranchers need long-term leases to prudently invest in infrastructure improvements on leased lands. DOA's rules are set up to encourage agriculture and make it practical to do so. Again, Governor, thank you for making agriculture a priority. We want to thank your BOA Chair, Sharon Hurd, and your Dlnr Chair, Don Chang, and their amazing staffs for working with industry, working with the lessees, okay, to implement or start really implementing Act 90. We are thrilled with the progress so far and look forward to continuing our efforts to transfer the remaining pasture leases. We also appreciate the leadership of both the Senate and the House. Look how many of them are here today, okay? Especially our Senate President Kochi, Speaker Scott Saiki, our Ag Chair, Cedric Gates here, our Senate Ag Chair, Senator Gabbard, Vice Chair of the Senate Ag, our rancher, Senator Richards. We also have Senator Farmer DeCoit, Vice Chair of the House Ag Committee, Representative Kahaloa, and one of the advocates, former Vice Chair of our House Ag Committee, Richard Onishi. And no, I did not forget the architect and the introducer of Act 90 in 2003, our Waterland Chair, Senator Inouye. Thank you, Senator, along with your colleague, Representative Ichiyama. You guys have done incredible work to get us to where we are today. Thank you, Senator. Okay. We also want to acknowledge Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke, who helped advocate and has been a great supporter of Act 90, and in fact worked with Senator Donovan Dela Cruz of the Ways and Means Committee and Representative Kyle Yamashita with the House Finance Committee last session to allocate funds to help with the implementation of Act 90. Okay. Governor, I would also want to acknowledge the many people and organizations that advocated for Act 9 and helped us, along with your administration and the legislators, to help us get to where we are today, and will continue helping us with the overall transfers of ag lands. Our past president for the Farm Bureau, Randy Cabral, Nicole Galassi with the Cattlemen's and Managing Director, Chad Buck, again, Chair Hurd and her amazing staff, Chair Chang and her amazing staff. They worked countless hours to get us to where we are today. However, my greatest thanks goes to the ranchers and farmers who continue to steward the land and produce the food while waiting patiently for the implementation of Act 90. We should all thank them for the commitment that they make every day, not only producing the food, fuel, floriculture that we want here in the state of Hawaii, but also in the protection and conservation of our precious natural resources. On behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau and the many other agriculture organizations that we represent and support, we want to again thank you, Governor, and the legislature, and acknowledge the work that you do to support Hawaii's farmers and ranchers. We have moved the needle on Act 90, but there's still much more work that needs to be done. Thank you. Thank you.
Mahalo nui, Brian. Finally, please welcome Hawaii Cattlemen's Council Managing Director Nicole Galase.
Aloha and good morning. My name is Nicole Galase. I'm the Managing Director for the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. I'm really appreciative of being able to be here to represent the Hawaii's Paniolo. In July of 2022, we met with Governor Green. The Hawaii Cattlemen's Council and Hawaii Farm Bureau met with Governor Green. We told him that our priority was keeping ag lands and ag production. He understood it. And that's why he supported Act 90 to transfer these ag leases from Dlnr to DOA. 20 years ago in 2003, the legislature understood the need to protect these agricultural lands. Like Governor said, Senator Inouye authored that bill. She knew that it needed to happen, and this was a way to do it. Finally, in 2023, when the governor put his support behind Act 90 and the Senate listed it as a priority, Chair Chang and Chair Hurd started making real progress by actually working together to identify these lands that should transfer and starting that process for the boards to approve them. These agricultural leaseholders have been waiting for 20 years to be transferred to a department that actually supports agriculture, to further agriculture for our food production. This is the most movement we have seen in decades. But, like we've said, there's still work to be done. There are still leases to transfer. These leaseholders are those who are producing agricultural products. And according to the Act 90 Working Group, lands under Dlnr used for the primary and substantial management objective of agricultural production should be transferred to DOA. This is not taking lands away from conservation. It's actually keeping agricultural lands in production and giving these leaseholders the confidence that they'll stay in business. Their business of cattle production is one that must include land management. This includes conservation. They have been investing millions of dollars into things like invasive species removal, fencing, water systems. These are all practices and infrastructure that extend their benefit to the wider public, all while also producing food. It is so important that we ensure that our lands stay in management, because even just a few months of being out of management can lead to an influx of invasive species and increased fuel fire loads, which we do not want. And getting these types of lands back into working order requires a lot of money and effort. DOA is ready and willing to accept these agricultural leases and keep them going in agriculture. Further, the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council has secured almost $3.5 million in grants from the NRCS, the Climate Smart Commodities and the Grazing Lands Conservation Initiative, so that we can help these ranchers do the conservation practices they need while they're producing food. We hope that Dlnr considers approving these leases for transfer, as it's a win-win for both food security and conservation. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Nicole. Now I would like to welcome questions from the media. Our first question comes from the Honolulu Star Advertiser, Andrew Gomes.
Okay, thanks. Who could best, I'm not sure if this is for the governor or Chair Chang, who can best guess or estimate or promise of the remaining lands how much will be transferred? And if I'm doing the math right, I think it's 67,000 either transferred or committed to be transferred out of the 110,000?
I don't have the exact number, but I think we've estimated probably about $70,000 acres total will be transferred that we mutually agree to. So I believe that's about the total that we're looking at.
Thanks. You can come back.
Our next question comes from Mark Ladau, Hawaii Public Radio.
Hi, this is probably for one of the chairs of the departments. So that means there are about 40,000 acres left. Can you describe what that land looks like, and I guess what's the biggest discussion between those right now?
If I may, part of the challenge, it's more administrative. So we've identified lands that we both agree on transferring. So DOA has completed their due diligence. Their Board of Agriculture has approved it. Now it comes over to DLNR for our board to approve it. And then we prepare the executive order for the governor to sign. So conceptually, we have all agreed on what lands we want transferred. It's just a matter of the paperwork kind of catching up. I think, Chair, would you agree?
I would agree. Thanks to our Board of Agriculture that moved on the Act 90 transfers in October. Our staff, again, I have to call out our staff for doing 99 parcels in the short time that they did. So I would agree that we did our job. Now it's turned over to Dlnr, and they are putting it on the agenda as soon as they can. And then once that's done, to Don's point, it's a lot of, still, there's administrative paperwork. The governor signs the EO. So with it, we're moving. There's a lot of progress, but it takes time.
The interesting part about this was, there's been so much talk about economic diversification and being food sustainable that when we were lucky enough to come into office, we were shocked that this wasn't just a big part of our goal. And so it was particularly good to get a call from Senator Inouye and the chairs of the Ag Committee saying, okay, new administration, you're committed to ag, right? Let's do this. And one by one, they directed us on people who have been waiting in line. There's some bureaucracy involved, but we are about 40 times faster, basically, than the old days. So that's what we're going to do. We'll be 40 times faster continuously.
Mark with Hawaii Public Radio.
So, Chair, you had mentioned that there's conceptually this agreement about which lands you're going to transfer. Can you say how much has been agreed, I guess, conceptually to stay within the Dlnr, and how much is going to be moved to the
We put them in buckets. So 1/3 has probably already transferred prior to 2023. And in 2023, we had 2 very large parcels, probably total over 24,000 acres. But we have to do the survey of that. So those are all those that we've agreed to. So the second bucket is those that we have mutually agreed to, and those are probably be the ones that will come up to about 40,000 acres, additional acres. So we hope to consummate that transfer probably over the next, I'd like to say, optimistically, the next 6 to 8 months, complete that transfer. It will include a governor's executive order. Then the third bucket is probably about 1/3 of that Dlnr would like to keep, because retain those because of their value for forest restoration, watershed protection. So we are committed to completing those first 2 buckets and completely transfer those to DOA as soon as we can get those to our land board.
Our final question comes from Andrew Gomes, Honolulu Star Advertiser.
Okay, thanks again. Just to clarify the numbers one more time, and then part of my question is, of all the land agreed to transfer now, of all those acres, is it how many acres? Is it all of it? Are they all ranch land? And then again on the math, so if 19,000 acres has been transferred, another 48,000 agreed to transfer, and then if 3,000 more is expected, is that it? There's 3,000 more expected to be transferred, and then the balance would stay with Dlnr?
That is to be determined as we survey the lands that our Dlnr wishes to retain. Let's call it that. There are carve-outs. There could be carve-outs, just like there was with KK Ranch. There was some land that the Dlnr felt they needed to, as the charter says, protect and conserve and protect. So KK Ranch was amenable to that. They carved it off. And that kind of action we expect will be happening for the rest of the parcels. But I do want to clarify back to Mark's question. On the lands that Dlnr had identified and DOA had identified as potential transfers, those are the ones that we worked on, the 103 parcels that have already been approved by the Board of Ag. Not all of them came over. With the due diligence done by the staff, I'm going to call out again, BOA staff. Dlnr has great staff as well, but we did our part first. not all the parcels came over. Some of them had issues such as landlocked, not good for ag production. Some of them were too small. So that's the kind of work that we're doing for the rest of the parcels, that we're going to look at each parcel as an individual transfer. And some of them will come over, some of them will have carve-outs, some of them will not come over. So the work is still ongoing, lots to do. And was that the answer to your question? I hope so.
Let me just clarify for Andrew. So we probably have transferred up prior to 2023, 19,000 acres. We are in the process of probably transferring an additional 40,000 acres to make it approximately 70,000 acres in total that will be transferred. So the process began in 2003 with a whole listing of, we were to identify all of the ag leases that Dlnr had. Based upon that, then over time we came up to what do we mutually agree. And as everybody has said here, historic movement over the last year to the point where we're looking at now transferring an additional over 40,000 acres that we agreed to. But we do plan on retaining, in addition to that, some acreage for Dlnr, for forest management, trails access. So yes, it's not all that will go over, but I believe it's about 70,000. Well, you know, this is an ongoing commitment on both of our parts, so there may be some additional transfers, but at this point in time, based upon the due diligence that has occurred, I believe that's the estimated acreage that will transfer.
And then is that all ranchland or?
No, so that was a good question. I'm sorry, we didn't answer all of that. So most of it is large pasture leases, but there are some smaller parcels. So it was anything that was identified as agriculture. Okay.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Governor up for closing remarks.
So why don't I just say one quick word and then call a tiny audible so that the great work of these departments is noted. Most of the bulk of this large project is going to be completed in the coming 12 months, but this is going to be an ongoing process. And we want to continue to focus on how we use our land because, as was stated very eloquently, if it's in good use, it's good for our environment. It protects us against other large challenges, not the least of which is a lot of grass that grows and grows and grows and can become a concern. So we're grateful for that. And if I may, Senator, would you come up and say a closing word after doing so much on this over the years? Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Governor, and to Chair Chang and Chair Hurd. This is, I'll tell you, 20 years of delays has been a long time. However, the goal at that time when we worked on this legislation of Act 90, it was to preserve the lands, but also for food sustainability. And that was the goal at that time. However, as we are in 2024 and 2023 as well, food sustainability, food security, and farm to school has been added, and all due to the diligence of our legislators as well that sought to include all these changes so that Hawaii can sustain its own food sustainability. So mahalo, Governor, and the administration. We're so happy to have reached this decade of moving laws that has been in the books for so many years that we are on the right track. Aloha.
Okay, we'll be back on Monday for the State of the State. Thanks, everybody. Aloha.
Mahalo nui. This formally concludes today's news conference.